All right, looks like we are connected. Want to first start off by saying, hope everyone is doing well out there. Everyone's safe. Everyone's having a great night, and want to thank everyone who was with us today while we were on the road. Started out in Greensboro, North Carolina, with an amazing visit there at a really important museum, and then at North Carolina A&T, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But want to tell you that I'm transmitting tonight from Wytheville, Virginia, in the southwest part of the state. We just had amazing hot dogs at Skeeter's, which is an institution, been there since 1925, under new management right now. Got to meet the new owner and some of the team working for him, and had the Works hot dog, which is a bright red hot dog with onions, chili, cheese, and coleslaw. And it was pretty good. And so far, seems to be treating my system okay. This is about an hour or two after having the hot dog. So early reports are very positive. And before that, had a really good impromptu town hall meeting. We actually expected to come to town and just knock on doors. We're trying to satisfy the petition requirement to be able to be on the ballot for the primary here in the Commonwealth. And instead, when we showed up to the cafe, I think it was called New Day Cafe. Let me check in my records. Or Cynthia, if you're watching, will you confirm for me? I think it was New Day Cafe. Anyhow, there were a bunch of people there waiting to see us. And so we had 57 petition signatures from the 57 folks who showed up. And then just a really good conversation. And I remember very well one part of that conversation. A gentleman who was sitting in the front row said, "Look, I am a proud and responsible gun owner." And he said, "I can't tell you how many AR-15s and AK-47s I own, but I would gladly give them up. I would gladly destroy them. Don't need them. And the gun violence that we have in this country is out of control. We got to do something about it. And I want to be part of the solution." And that was very striking to me in a very conservative part of the country, in a very Republican congressional district that, it's been, I think, more than 10 years since a Democrat represented this area. And to have someone in front of all of his peers and folks who know him to say that, I thought was really impressive, and really I think helped to make the point that it's going to take all of us on these challenges like gun violence in this country. Cannot just be Democrats, cannot just be folks who have already come to this conclusion, and certainly has to involve gun owners as well as non-gun owners, Republicans as well as Democrats. And I, again, thought that was really encouraging, and was also very struck by the kindness and the warmth and the welcome that we got from everyone, including George Bailey, who introduced himself to me and said he had to run off because he was helping to produce a production of Ring of Fire about Johnny Cash at the Community Dinner Theater here in Wytheville in Wythe County, Virginia. And then just so happens that the community theater is right across from the hotel that we're staying at. And so we ran into each other again as I was checking into the hotel. And he came over to say hello. His wife and his kids stayed at the town hall, and we had a really good conversation with them afterwards. I just got a text from Cynthia. It's the Open Door Cafe. And the Open Door Cafe is a pay what you can cafe. So really interesting concept, and very cool owner who hosted us. And importantly, after I had finished, introducing myself and answering questions from people, passed around the petition form so that folks could sign up and get us on the ballot. So want to thank the Open Door Cafe for having us out, and everyone here and the folks at Skeeter's who made the wonderful hot dogs that we ate. I began by telling you about going to Greensboro, which is a city that we've been to before over the course of this campaign. But importantly today, I got to go to the Civil Rights Museum there that is located in the Woolworths, which on February 1st, 1960, was the scene of a true act of courage and defiance and American leadership. 4 young men, all students at North Carolina A&T. Mistakenly, I learned today, referred to as the Greensboro Four. The students at North Carolina A&T will have you know they are the A&T Four, because it was not universally accepted in Greensboro what they did, but they had the full backing of the student body at A&T. But these 4 young men, all students at A&T, Blair, McCain, McNeil, and Richmond, walked into that Woolworths, purchased something from the convenience store counter within the Woolworths, and I forget what it is they bought, and that counter was integrated. Anyone could come in, spend money, buy school supplies, as I think they did, but importantly, only whites were allowed to sit at the lunch counter and eat their food there. Blacks could order, but had to pick up their food at the end of the counter and take it to go. And so these 4 young men sat down at the lunch counter, not together. They sat at different places along the lunch counter, showed their receipts to the waiters behind the counter, and were, of course, refused service, and stayed there through closing time, and then left the Woolworths. And there's this iconic photo, and I wish I could show it to you right now. Maybe I can pull it up on my iPad and display it. And it is the 4 of them walking out. And one of them, who was part of the ROTC program at A&T, is wearing his ROTC uniform, which to me is really important. It was, his demonstration that he was willing to serve this country. And potentially, if he were to enter military service, sacrifice his life for this country, a country where he was not treated as a full human being, a full man, a full citizen. And as you may know, in the following days after February 1st, 1960, at first dozens and then hundreds of other students from A&T, from other colleges, from a local high school, joined these 4 students, and ultimately forced the city of Greensboro, and importantly the management of Woolworths, on July 25th of that same year, 1960, to change their policy and to integrate that lunch counter. And without any fanfare or any cameras, the manager of that Woolworths asked 4 of his African-American employees, I'm sorry, it may not be 4, but a certain number of them, it may have been 4, but I can't remember, to take off their aprons and sit on the other side of the counter and be served meals, thereby integrating that lunch counter. But it was both the ability to shock the conscience of the country or grab hold of the attention of America, as well as bring Woolworths to its knees economically, because what began as a simple request to be served in a place of public accommodation turned into what functionally became a boycott of the Woolworths there. And their profits plummeted, and it really became a financial or an economic decision for Woolworths. They could no longer deny service, deny the full civil and human rights of the people of Greensboro without going under and becoming bankrupt. And that was something that stuck with me. It was both the moral persuasion and the appeal to this country's conscience, as well as forcing the financial or the economic issue for Woolworths, something that we saw in the bus boycott, the same thing that we saw in other successful efforts to force integration in different parts of the country. But those 4 young men on February 1st, 1960, forever changed this country for the better, and really changed the world for the better. It became part of not just the consciousness of America, but really of nonviolent demonstrators who were fighting for their full civil and human rights all over the world. So that was really powerful to be there today, to understand that story in the context provided by the museum, which is housed in that Woolworths, where you can go to the very lunch counter that they sat at. The extraordinary docents and guides who walked us through that exhibit, the context historically of the era, the continuation of some of these challenges. We know that racism and functional segregation is alive and well in the United States of America today. And so that exhibit, that museum, those who guided us through the displays, force that question: how do we meet these challenges that we have here today in this country, the racism that we have today, the fact that there's 10 times the wealth in white America than there is in black America, the disparities in access to education and educational achievement, healthcare, where you have, for example, a maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for women of color, or a system of healthcare, which I learned even more about through the 1619 Project on the New York Times website, that there's really a legacy of slavery and Jim Crow and segregation. There's a reason we don't have universal health care in this country. There's a reason that communities of color are disproportionately represented in the uninsured today. All of that was part of what we talked about and learned about on today's trip through that museum. So I want to thank everyone who made that possible, and everyone who took the time to take me through those exhibits. I was joined by 2 students from North Carolina A&T, one of whom, Tony, would later introduce me in the day to a classroom that had engineers, political scientists, liberal arts and science majors alike. And we just had a really good, rollicking, honest conversation about where this country is right now. And I both answered questions, but I also just took ideas and suggestions, solutions to some of the challenges that we face as a country right now. And I've got to tell you, it's really impressive, 60 years after the leadership that came out of A&T, to see really inspiring leadership today on every issue that counts in this country. Really made me proud of A&T and really proud of this country, and very optimistic and hopeful that we still have it as a country, that though we're at this very perilous moment where everything that we care about is on the line, whether it's the economy or healthcare or the crisis that we have in our climate, or the way that we're treating immigrants and the undocumented, and the cruelty that this administration is visiting on our fellow human beings, there are still really amazing people of good conscience who are willing to do what it takes to make sure that we're all brought into the solutions, that we understand what is being done in our name, and that we are all held to account, and that we each stand up to be counted to decide which way this country will go. That's the impression that I got from A&T today. So I want to thank everybody who was part of that conversation. Really, really amazing people. And we've got some pictures up, I think, on the Twitter feed and on Instagram. You're welcome to see them and see some more of our reflections there. Also, just want to take a second to thank everybody who came out to spend time with us in South Carolina over the couple of days before North Carolina and Virginia, in Florence, in Columbia, in Charleston. Again, really good conversations at colleges like Benedict College, at breweries like those that we visited in Florence, like the one that we visited last night in Charlotte, where everyone can enjoy a beer, but can also enjoy conversation about the future of this country and fully participate in our democracy. All that energy, all of that participation, all of these people from every walk of life, again, very encouraging, makes me very optimistic. And I just feel very good about the way that we're running this campaign, where everyone is welcomed, it's open to all, and we just have a really good, very productive, very constructive conversation. Somebody shared with me, I think it may have been my sister Charlotte, an article on, it was on Facebook, but it was linked to Politico, and it was comparing the different Democratic presidential campaigns and how many events they're holding and the kind of events that they're holding. And I think the entry on our campaign said, no one is holding more events than we are, in small settings and big settings, in counties like Wytheville County, where we are right now, where perhaps no other contender shows up because perhaps it's too red and maybe there aren't enough votes. But nonetheless, we're here and we're listening to people and we're including them into the solutions to the challenges this country faces. And I think that's the right way to do this. I also think it's the right way to win the nomination. I think it's the only way to defeat Donald Trump. And so very grateful for the teams on the ground who set up these meetings, the volunteers who open up their cafes or their bars or their homes or their places to make sure that we can convene and gather and be able to listen to and talk to one another. So I want to thank you for that. And I thought just before I answer a couple questions and read some of your comments, I'd mention 2 events tomorrow that you are very welcome to join us at. One is in Roanoke at Wine Gourmet, 3524 Electric Road in Roanoke, Virginia. That is at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow. And we welcome you to join us there. Open to the public, Republican, Democrat, independent, non-voter alike. If you are there, you're in the right place, and you're welcome to join us. And then a little bit later, Virginia Tech Town Hall in Blacksburg. That's at 4 p.m., and that's at 490 Old Turner Street in Blacksburg, Virginia. So Blacksburg and Roanoke, we're looking forward to seeing you soon. If you want to get more details, look up these events on Facebook. You can RSVP, although you do not have to in order to attend. You can make a last-minute decision, call an audible, show up if you have a chance to take a break from work or school or family, or bring your family or your coworkers or your classmates with you. It'll be all the merrier for their participation. But again, these are open to the public. We want to have you out there. It's the best way for me to be the best possible candidate, to have a chance to listen to you, to answer your questions, to be held accountable, and to have the benefit of your ideas. A lot of great ideas being brought to these meetings, and we're grateful for them. So with that, I asked Cynthia, who is watching the feed, to monitor the comments. Cynthia, thank you for doing this. And if you want to send me any great comments, ideas, or questions, let me know. So Louise is saying, Cynthia, I thought Roanoke was from 1 to 2:30. Do I have that wrong? I did have that wrong. I'm sorry. I misread it. Roanoke is tomorrow at 1 p.m. I may have said 2:30 earlier. Roanoke is at 1 p.m. at Wine Gourmet, 3524 Electric Road. My bad. And then Virginia Tech in Blacksburg is at 4 p.m. and that's at 490 Old Turner Street. So sorry about that. There's Edwin talking about the spirit of El Paso. Edwin, I've got this great El Paso Strong bracelet on that I got when I was home last time. Super excited about Khalid coming to El Paso this weekend on Sunday. I think I'm going to get a chance to be there. Hope that you're going to be there as well. I think that really says something about Khalid. I think it says something about the spirit of El Paso, that in the face of this tragedy, we're going to come together and we're going to celebrate everything that's amazing about El Paso, everything that made us amazing in the first place, and all the ways in which we distinguished ourselves in the aftermath of that terror attack. These incredibly strong families who are pulling together and pulling through, many of them still in the hospitals, recovering from their wounds. A community who came together, attended the funerals, the vigils, the memorials, were there for our fellow El Pasoans, our fellow human beings, including those in Juarez and in Chihuahua, who were grieving for lost loved ones, to show them that we were with them at one of the toughest moments they've ever had. And nothing makes that easier or better, but at least they know that we're with them and that we will always be with them every single step of the way going forward. So very, very proud of El Paso and Juarez and Las Cruces and all of the communities in our border region, all of whom came together, all the amazing people who really really make us proud. So Edwin, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, a question about the debate, saying it's going to be really crowded. There's 10 people. Will you try to do something to stand out in a better way this time? The answer is yes. Yes, of course I want to do that. And yes, it's tough with 9 other people on that stage. And yes, it can be difficult in 60 seconds or less to lay out how you will help lead this country on any number of really important but very complex policy issues. But certainly I can do a strong job of reflecting what you've told me, what I'm hearing across this country, what's most urgent and necessary right now. And so I take that responsibility and that opportunity seriously, and I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for asking about that. Khalid, born in Fort Stewart, Georgia. Thanks for sharing that fact. Yeah, and I believe moved to El Paso when he was in high school. A community that he embraced and a community that embraced him. So we share him with you, but we absolutely are proud to claim him and are grateful for his love for El Paso and his willingness to come back and be there for those families right now and for a community, for the entire community. So point taken. Maya says, just be yourself in the debate. I will try to do that. I may even just take this iPhone and the tripod and just put it on the podium so that I'm just talking to you, Maya, instead of having to worry about the moderators and the TV and all the weirdness of the production. So thank you. Somebody says, go to sleep, Beto, you look tired. Absolutely, I'm on it. I'll go to sleep soon. But I realized I hadn't checked in a while, and I had received a number of texts today asking that we live stream for a little bit, just to give an update and let folks know where we're going to be tomorrow. So happy to do that. Thank you, Gabriella. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate that. And to everyone who's sending support and encouragement, know that it is gratefully received. And to the degree that you can share that with others and bring them into what they're doing, share this feed right now if you have a second. Encourage people to go to BetoO'Rourke.com, where they can find out more about the positions that I'm taking, the platform that we just released on trade to make us more competitive, to do a better job of ensuring that U.S. workers are on a level playing field, that we protect our farmers from these trade wars and the tariff battles that this current president has got us in, and that we use trade as an opportunity to promote our values, like protecting the environment and making climate a priority and a part of every single decision and trade negotiation and facet of those trade deals, to make sure that we use our leverage and our leadership to do good for this country, for the world, for this generation and every generation to come. You can find out more at BetoO'Rourke.com. You can also sign up if you want to be the first to know when we're coming to your community. And you can make a donation. Your $5 or $10 or $15 keeps me on the road and make sure that I can stay in this hotel and that we have gasoline in the Dodge Grand Caravan to get to the next destination. So I appreciate that. It also funds our field organization, all those amazing people knocking on doors, making phone calls, reaching out to our fellow Americans to bring them into this election and into our campaign. So a couple of questions that Cynthia's texting me. How is Artemis? Artemis is our 4-year-old dog. She's really good. And I just posted a picture this weekend of Molly presenting Artemis with a birthday cake that she baked for Artemis. It's made out of, I'm not sure what, but it's not chocolate, and it's stuff that is safe for dogs with a candle on it. Artemis is good. And when I'm back in El Paso, I go for a run with her. And when I'm not in El Paso, Amy's taking her for a run every morning. So thank you for asking. Shout out to Chris Hund, super volunteer. Chris, thanks for what you're doing. To all the super volunteers out there who've been knocking on doors, making phone calls, enlisting the support of their classmates and coworkers and friends and family members, their Republican mothers. I sometimes talk about my Republican mom, who we convinced to vote for me in this last election and who is our biggest supporter. But there are a lot of people out there who are looking for a new home and recognize that the Republican Party under Donald Trump is no longer their party and want someone and a campaign that represents their values and will listen to them and respect them and allow them to be part of the solution. And one of the questions we got is, how do we come together with Republicans when it comes to guns? I mentioned at the outset in Wytheville tonight, there was a guy here in this very Republican community, a gun owner, who said, I don't know how many AR-15s and AK-47s I own, but I'd be willing to give them up, sell them back. And then he actually said this, he said, I'd be willing to destroy them, cut them up, I don't need them for hunting, don't need them for self-defense. These are weapons of war. And so by going to this conservative community and not writing anybody off or taking anybody for granted, including him and others in the solution, I think we have someone who will work with us on ensuring that we pass background checks and red flag laws, but also who gets that we should stop selling AK-47s and AR-15s, and we should buy them back where they are in this country right now. They are used to terrorize our fellow Americans, and they have no place in civilian life. And so I think that's how we work with Republicans and gun owners and non-gun owners alike. Another quick story on this: we were in 2 weeks ago, Conway, Arkansas, at a gun show. And again, talking to those who are actually selling the AR-15s, AK-47s, or purchasing those guns about our proposal to make sure that we stop selling them. I don't know how many people we were able to persuade. I don't know if it was my job to persuade them there. I was there to listen and to learn, and was surprised when folks approached me and said that they thought that there should be stricter background checks. One gentleman who said, at this gun show, if you have a pulse and you're 18 years old, I have to sell you the gun, and that's wrong. I shouldn't be able to do this. He said that, not me. Another man who owns an AR-15 said, look, I don't agree with you on your assault weapons policy, but I have kids, they're going to school, I'm worried about their safety, I know we got to do something. He was at least willing to begin the conversation. Another gentleman who said that he'd voted for Trump and might very well vote for Trump next time said, I have assault weapons and I'd be willing to give them up. So let's give people a chance and not assume anything, not write them off. Let's bring them in. Gabriella likes my new haircut. Thank you, Gabriella. So Chema's was closed for the month of August. My barber, Manuel, who I've introduced some of you to, who moved his barbershop from Ciudad Juarez in circa 2009, 2010, taking the month off. So I went to Coronado Barbers and got a haircut there. Jonathan, thank you for the haircut. And thank you, Gabriella, for noticing. I think those are all the questions I got. And as somebody said, I should probably go to bed soon. So I will. There's Chris. Hey, Chris, he's behind us 200%. Thank you. That's nice to hear. Renee in Arizona says that Arizona will turn blue. We need to be there. Let's do it. Cynthia, if you're watching this, let's go to Arizona soon. It looks like Cynthia's about to type another comment. This is probably a good note to end on. So along the way, just on this trip in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, and certainly we saw it in Mississippi and Arkansas and Oklahoma and Kansas and Missouri and Iowa last week, all of these amazing ambassadors and envoys, these are the super volunteers who are not just knocking on doors, but are organizing others to knock on doors, are not paid for doing this, so taking time out of their lives, away from their families, making this campaign in our country a priority. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who signed up for that program. If you would like to be an envoy for this campaign, you can go to BetoO'Rourke.com and sign up there. Or if you're at one of our events tomorrow, you can introduce yourself to Cynthia Cano, who came up with this idea of ambassadors and envoys. It was my sister Erin, the bear, who was calling me. I'm going to call her right back after this. And there's my mom texting me all at once. So last thing, and then I'll let everybody go and I'll go to bed. Tomorrow in Roanoke, 1 p.m. at Wine Gourmet, which is at 3524 Electric Road. Everyone welcome. Democrats, Republicans, independents, non-voters alike, coming out and join us in Roanoke. And then later, Virginia Tech Town Hall in Blacksburg at 4 p.m. at 490 Old Turner Street in Blacksburg, Virginia. And if you need the zip code for any reason, it's 24061. And it looks like we have a lot of people signed up who are going, at least according to the RSVPs on Facebook. So looking forward to seeing everybody who comes out tomorrow. Thanks to everybody in Wytheville who was with us tonight, everybody in Greensboro and at A&T, and everyone in North Carolina, South Carolina over the last couple of days. It's been a great trip. and I am very grateful. We'll see you all soon. Adios.